So I've never made a manga collection video, but that changes today. My reasoning behind not making a collection video is that I never thought the size of my collection warranted a video, and the lighting in my room isn't the best. But I recently surpassed 100 volumes, and I replaced the batteries on my shelf lights. So now I think it's time to take a look at my physical collection. But here are some answers to some questions you're probably thinking about. How do you organize your collection? I organize alphabetically. It may not look the best, but it's easy to find a volume when I'm looking for it. What kind of lights do you use? I use Walmart brand puck lights. It's $15 for a pack of 5 and they run off batteries. There are definitely better shelf lights out there, but this works best for my current setup. How much of your collection have you read? Out of 137 volumes, I have read 107, which gives me a completion rating of roughly 78%. Lastly, what is the retail value of your collection? The retail value of my collection is roughly $1,800, which does not include discounts from memberships, sales like the Right Stuff birthday sale, and BOGO deals that I use to get a chunk of Vinland Saga. Now with that stuff out of the way, let's get started. Starting with the first bookcase, the first series on the shelf is Attack on Titan Omnibuses 1 through 6. I decided to collect the series in the omnibus format because it has the least amount of art cutoff, which is very surprising. You'd think the colossal editions would have the least amount of art cutoff, but as shown in Anime Collective's wonderful video on each format, that is not the case. But my youngest sister actually introduced me to Attack on Titan since she's more into the heavy action shonens, while I tend to read more of the slice of life series, and I fell in love with the characters and world. Some aspects do lose me, like pretty much all of season 4, but I do enjoy most of the series. Next up is Banana Fish Volume 1. This was recommended to me by my friend who goes by Grass on the internet, and they're actually the person who made the artwork used in both of my profile pictures. But they've read and watched quite a few shoujo and BL series, and they recommended the series. I did enjoy the first volume, and I do plan to continue the series. I just haven't gotten around to it. Next are volumes 1 through 3 of Blood on the Tracks. I decided to check out the series after hearing fellow manga tuber Simon Saburo talk about it in their manga hauls and reading logs. And even though they warned their viewers that it's pretty dark and they couldn't really recommend it, I didn't heed those warnings and picked it up. I'm definitely in agreement that I can't recommend it since it's not for the faint of heart, but I really enjoy it, and it makes me want to check out some of Shuzo Oshimi's other works. The second to last series on the shelf is Blue Lock, volumes 1 through 5. This is the only sports series in my collection so far, and that's because I find the concept of Blue Lock super interesting. In my opinion, a lot of sports series have similar concepts, like we'll win through the power of friendship. Meanwhile, Blue Lock throws those concepts out of the window and says, screw that, let's have every character be egotistical and only care for themselves. And that's super interesting to me. I can breeze through these volumes very easily, hence why I don't have the most recent volumes, as I'm letting them stack up so I can binge read a couple of volumes at a time. Lastly, we have volume 1 of Box of Light. I picked this up on a whim since the cover really caught my eye, and the summary on the back of the book continued to pique my interest. For anyone who hasn't heard of this series, it's centered around a convenience store in between life and death, and follows the patrons and workers and how they found themselves in this situation. It was an okay read, definitely a 6 out of 10. I'll give this series a 3-volume rule and decide if it's something I want to continue or drop altogether. Then we start the second shelf with volumes 1 through 5 of Classroom of the Elite, the manga. I binge watched seasons 1 and 2 of the anime and enjoyed it for the most part, so I decided to pick up the manga. Right away, I noticed quite a difference between both mediums, but I'm enjoying the manga. I've only read the first 3 volumes so far, which means I have some catching up to do. The next book is Deadpool Samurai Volume 1. It's alright. You'll find better stories in actual comic books, but if you've never read a Western comic, then this could provide a gateway for that medium, but it's still a 6 out of 10 for me personally. Then we have volumes 1, 2, and 21 of Dr. Stone. Volume 21 was a Christmas gift, hence the leap in volumes, but this is a wonderful series for all ages. Anytime I'm suggesting this series to someone, I say it's like a Bill Nye the Science Guy was an Ark Survival Evolved, minus the dinosaurs. A part of me wants to continue collecting the singles, while the other part wants to wait a bit to see if Viz Media announces a box set for this series, because I think if any recent series were to get a box set announcement, it would be Dr. Stone. Then we have Food Wars Volume 1. This is a another series I've been meaning to continue, but anytime I go to my local bookstore, they don't have volume 2 or any of the other volumes in the middle of the series. They always have the first and last volumes, but nothing in between, so I'll probably have to order them online. Next we have Fist of the North Star Volume 1 in this wonderful hardcover edition. I love post-apocalyptic stories like the Fallout game series, so I was super intrigued by this series. I wasn't feeling the first half of the book, but the second half drew me into the world. This is another series that will get the 3-volume rule, although I probably will end up continuing it. Then the last single volume on the shelf is Fly Me to the Moon Volume 1. Yet another series I've been meaning to continue, but other series like Vinland Saga have just been holding my attention. But I will continue this series. Here's a quick summary of the story. It follows a newlywed couple as they go through the challenges that come with being married, and it's been a super wholesome read so far. Then the last series on the shelf is not so wholesome, and that is Goblin Slayer 1 through 10 and Goblin Slayer Year 1. I definitely do not recommend this series, as it is super dark and not for the faint of heart. I understand why people don't like this series, I totally get it, but it's a series where I can acknowledge the major flaws it has but still find enjoyment within the series. Moving on to the third shelf, we have Hell's Paradise Volumes 1 through 13, which completes the series. I recently came out with a video talking about the themes, character design, and overall thoughts on the series, so I suggest you check that out if you haven't already. But my quick thoughts are that I really enjoyed this series. It has some of the wackiest yet brilliant concepts that I've seen in my manga collecting journey so far. There are a lot of amazing characters that go through interesting progression arcs, and the artwork is also fantastic. Some concepts the series explores do begin to lose me, and the fight scenes are sometimes hard to follow, but it's a wonderful series overall. I personally rate it a 9 out of 10. The next book is I Wanna Eat Your Pancreas in this complete edition. This is an amazing yet bittersweet romance about a high schooler and his classmate who has a terminal pancreatic disease. This is one of, if not the best romances I've read so far, and I definitely recommend it, but I will say you should read it when you're in the mood for a sad story. And then the last series on the shelf starts the Jujutsu Kaisen section, so we have volumes 1 through 4, and the next shelf continues volumes 5 through 19. This is yet another series my youngest sister has introduced me to, as she tends to brag about. If you're watching this video, you've just been called out, but I've been taking my time with the series, and as a result, I've read up to volume 6. But I've been facing a dilemma with this series, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. I do want to make a video on Jujutsu Kaisen similar to my Hell's Paradise and Vinland Saga videos, but I don't know if I want to make a video on these 19 volumes or wait for the series to finish and read the rest on the Shonen Jump app, then make the video. So basically, do you want 2 videos on Jujutsu Kaisen or 1 complete video on the series? Sound off in the comments below. Then we've arrived at the last shelf on this bookcase, but we still have one more bookcase after this. So the first book we have is JoJo's Part 1, Volume 1. Yet another series I've been meaning to continue, but just haven't gotten around to it. I am enjoying the series so far. Dio is my favorite character because he's just a menace, and I don't like Jonathan, so I will continue this series when I get around to it. And then we have Kaguya-sama Love is War Volume 1, which I thought was just alright. I will give this series the 3-volume rule, and if I'm not hooked by then, it's going to the chopping block. Next are Kaiji Volumes 1 through 4, of which I've yet to read any. I picked them up during the first week of the Right Stuff summer sale and ended up saving $30, which was nice, and I was like, why not? Worst case scenario, I don't like it and have to sell it off. The next series I have read, and that is volumes 1 through 5 of Kaiju number 8. I picked up the first volume on a whim and enjoyed it, and I slowly but surely started getting the volumes as they released. I feel like the hype in the collecting space has died for this series, and now people are going digital only, which I can understand, but I'm still having fun with this series, and I will continue to collect it physically. Then we have 2 more single volumes, with those series being Komi Can't Communicate and Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible. Komi is in the same camp as Kaguya-sama, which means I thought it was just alright, like a 6 out of 10. It was honestly a bit of a slog to get through, and it's definitely on the chopping block, but I will give it the 3-volume rule. Kubo was surprisingly the complete opposite. It was super easy to get into, and I ended up breezing through this volume. I've been meaning to pick up the other volumes, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Then we have My Hero Academia volumes 1 through 3, 16, and 30. The last 2 volumes were gifts, gifts, so again, that explains the gap. My Hero Academia is in a similar situation to Dr. Stone's, where I don't know if I want to continue collecting the singles or get the box set. The only thing enticing me to go to the box set is simply the price, as the goodies included aren't that great in my opinion, but the printing quality is a detractor, so it's something I'll continue to debate about. The last volume on this bookcase is Naruto 3-in-1 Omnibus 1. Now, I didn't grow up with any of the big three, or even Pokemon for that matter. That's just something I missed growing up, so now I get to experience these properties as an adult and give my take on them. So far, I'm enjoying Naruto, and I think I will continue collecting this series in the 3-in-1 format for the price and space reasons. Now we get to the second bookcase, and start the first shelf off with One Punch Man volumes 1 through 7, excluding volume 4, because every retailer, including Amazon, had that volume out of stock when I bought these volumes. One Punch Man is one of my favorite series in my collection. It was the anime that truly got me into the medium, and the manga is just as, if not more, amazing than the anime. I highly recommend it if you're somehow unfamiliar with this series and you like comedic superhero stories. And then we have the last shoujo series in my collection, which is Orange, the Complete Collection, volumes 1 and 2, and Orange Future. Orange is another wonderful slice of life romance series about a girl named Naho who receives a letter from herself 10 years in the future and is asked to stop an event that she regrets in the future. It explores wonderful themes like mental health and is a great gateway manga for the shoujo demographic. And then we have a single volume of Quintessential Quintuplets, which is on the chopping block. This volume was a major slog to get through. I hated every character in this volume because they were just annoying. Emotions can be a wonderful tool in a writer's belt, and annoyance is arguably the hardest emotion to use right, and this volume didn't execute it well for me. The last series on the shelf is volumes 1 and 2 of the Rascal Does Not Dream manga. This is my favorite slice of life series in my collection. I discovered the anime at a low point in my life, and this series brought me some entertainment during that period. So as a result, I have a strong attachment to this property. I do recommend the light novels over the manga simply because they have a better release schedule, but the manga is another great way to consume the story. We've reached the second to last shelf, and we start off with two series that I didn't enjoy. So I think Record of Ragnarok has an interesting concept, and the fight scenes are really cool, but the actual story feels hollow. It's like if you were expecting a 3-course meal and only got dessert. Dessert is good, but having some savory food before then is more rewarding. And then Rent a Girlfriend is pretty simple. The main character sucks, and he never progresses as a character. Even when there's a lot of build-up, he just falls, not just on his face, but off the entire cliff. And it's interesting to see how the manga and anime communities first reacted to the series when it had some positive buzz, whereas nowadays everyone just craps on the series. The community had better progression than Kazuya. I mean, the mangaka basically created an infinite money glitch because people keep buying the series despite no progression. So it's clearly working for them. So yeah, I've been trying to get rid of these volumes, but I haven't been able to sell them off and make my money back, so I might just donate them to my local library. I'll figure out something. Then we have volumes 1 through 4 of Rising of the Shield Hero. This is the only isekai series in my collection, but I do plan on collecting more in the future. Shield Hero was the second isekai I ever watched, and I enjoyed it despite some of its issues. I also wanted to collect the manga after watching season 1. Plus, I heard the light novel author basically gave up towards the end of the series, and that the mangaka is going to attempt to give a more satisfying conclusion, so we'll see how things pan out. Next, we have the complete series of A Silent Voice and this Kodansha box set, which I got on sale on Amazon. I believe it's still on sale if you want to snag this for yourself, but A Silent Voice is another wonderful slice of life series that explores the concepts of bullying and mental health in a wonderful manner that can appeal to all ages. I would personally put Orange and Rascal Does Not Dream above A Silent Voice, but it's still a wonderful read, and I have a video on this series if you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts on it. The next book is Solanin by Inio Asano. This is the only Asano work in my collection so far, and I was just blown away by this story. It got me into my feelings and made me take a look at my own life and where I'm currently at. And if that's how I felt during this story, then I'm curious to see how Goodnight Pun Pun will affect me. But I totally recommend this story to any college students or young adults watching this video. Then we get to the only manhwa in my collection, and that is Solo Leveling Volume 1. I will admit that it has been a while since I last read this, but I remember it just being okay, like a 7 out of 10. I do need to revisit this and see if my thoughts have improved and continue the series as well. Who knows, I might make a video on this series if you peeps want to see that. The second to last book on the the shelf is Spy Family Volume 1. This continues the popular trend in my collection where I've been meaning to continue this series, but I've been focused on other stories. But Spy Family is a super wholesome story that has a lot of action, but also explores themes like adoptive families and the struggles that come with being a parent. Wonderful series from what I watched and read, and I suggest it to anyone looking for a wholesome family story. And then the last book on the shelf is Vagabond Volume 1 in the wonderful Visbig format. I do wish this had a hardcover edition because Vinland Saga has spoiled me, but this edition is great as well. I have read this book and I will say that this series will definitely get a video when I've caught up with the physicals, so keep your eyes peeled in 50 years when the other volumes are back in stock. We've reached the final shelf, which is my Vinland Saga shelf. I can't explain how much this series means to me. Even my video dedicated to this series can't explain the journey I went through reading Yukimura's wonderful story. Fun fact about the channel, the reason I went on hiatus for 4 months is because I had the Rona back in February, which basically put me out of commission for that month, and all I did while recuperating was play Ghost Recon Wildlands and read Vinland Saga. And then I went through a major creative block, but this series and that video brought me out of it. So if you want to know my in-depth thoughts on the series, then consider checking out that video if you haven't already. But that is my entire physical manga collection. I want to thank you so much for watching this video and allowing me to ramble about these pieces of paper on my shelves. Let me know what your favorite series is in my collection, as well as what you have in your collection. I'm curious to hear what you're collecting. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.